right, everyone, we will now be starting. Thank you, Keith, for coming on earlier and doing a brief introduction. My name is Aziza Muzamil. I'm a business development specialist here with the Business Opportunities Division at the Department of Small and Local Business Development, also known as DSLBD. Thank you again all for registering and joining us today for the Greenbook Fiscal Year 2024 training. Just as a reminder, this training is being recorded. Once it is properly converted, we will be sending out the YouTube link to access it in a couple of days. So please be on the lookout for that link. It will be coming from the business.opportunities@ec.gov email. Moving on, this is just an overview of what this presentation is. So it's the Greenbook Fiscal Year 2024 review from 12 to 1 p.m. Can you please bring in our greetings from Director Rose Evans?
Thank you, Aziza, and thank each and every one of you for being on the call and choosing to spend your time with us. Again, I'm Keith Howard, Manager of the Business Opportunities Division for the Department of Small and Local Business Development. On behalf of our Interim Director, Rosemary Suggs Evans, I bring you greetings. If you have not met our director, she was at the most recent in-person Greenbook event that we had downtown. She's a staunch supporter of all of our CBEs, and the Greenbook, we know, is a very important tool. As a matter of fact, she had just asked me 2 weeks ago, when is that training for the Greenbook? And I said, it's at the end of the month, Director. And so here we are. So we're excited to have you all. I also want to thank the Business Opportunities Division. These trainings take a lot of time and talent. And I like to brag that we have the best talent on our team, the Business Opportunities team. So I want to publicly make sure I recognize Katina Bolden, Aziza Muzamel, Burchell Douglas, and Angela Freeman for the excellent work that they do. So if you all can't ever reach me, and it seems like it's getting harder and harder to do that, don't hesitate to reach out to anyone on the Business Opportunities Division team. They'll be glad to help you. Next slide.
Thank you, Keith. I will also just like to caution that if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, please put them in the chat and we will read through and answer them at the end of the training during the Q&A section. So yes, we will just like to overview the mission here at Department of Small and Local Business Development. We want to make sure to support the development, economic growth, and retention of district-based businesses and promote the economic development through the district's commercial corridors. During today's training, we will be going over the following topics and subjects. So we'll make sure to cover the types of products and services sought out by the district government, locate the current and pending contract opportunities within the 91 monitored agencies in DC government, review the top industry spends. We will also have a demonstration section where we will go live into the Greenbook and we will show you how you should navigate the Greenbook. We will also quickly overview a worksheet for you to be able to track your research on the Greenbook and the different agencies, and then we will provide you the contact information for further in-depth contracting assistance. To start off, if you're wondering, how do I get to the Greenbook? This is the website you should type in this go to. So I'm not going to read that out. And once you get there, it should look like what the screenshot shows. You can also access it through the DSLBD website. There's a link that will directly take you to this Greenbook website. Moving on, Keith, I think you'll be taking over this time.
Sure, thanks, Aziza. So one of the first places that you want to go on the Greenbook is something that if you've ever heard me speak publicly, I talk about, when people say, well, why would I want to be a CBE? And I always say I can give you 1.2 billion reasons why you would want to be a CBE. Well, here's where I get the number from, right? So this is in writing, right? So this chart it's interesting. I think it's just interesting to know. I'm a resident of the city, and so I like having this type of information. But also, as a business person, it's interesting. Aziz, I think someone in the chat said they can't see. So if you look at that first big number, $15 billion, right? So that number is to run the government, right? It's a huge, huge number. All right. And then you see the numbers start to gradually get down and get smaller. So one of the numbers you'll see is that total number. It looks like it's 2.5 billion, right? So one of the things you'll want to know about the CBE law is that each agency must spend 50% of its expendable budget with CBEs that are small. So if you don't know whether or not you're deemed small, you would go to the CBE directory, pull up your CBE profile, and look under categories to see if you have SBE within your categories. If you do, you're a CBE that's small. Now, that 50% of the 2.5 billion is where we get the 1.23 billion dollars. That's where we get that number from. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now you know already. I'm at a pool of money that's 1.2. All right, now it's going to get smaller, right? Which means you've got to be real granular about how you're spending and how you're doing your market research. Next slide.
So at this point, we're gonna head over to the Greenbook website. So I'll be unsharing and then resharing my screen.
While Aziz is doing that, keep in mind there were some other numbers on there. I didn't go over those in the interest of time, but those numbers are, for example, some of those are fixed costs and personnel costs, right? So if you ever want to know, well, how much is it to pay all of us, right? I don't know how many it is, 15,000 of us, whatever it is, and what are all the fixed costs that the government has? You'll see a different color and a different dollar amount in that graphic. So as you're in the Greenbook, you want to if you're interested in that, there you go.
Yes, so using that link that I previously showed, you could get to the Greenbook DC website, and this is what you should be seeing on your screen. So to start off, you're gonna want to click right here, view the Greenbook, and that'll take you to this PDF format, which is the PDF format of the physical book. And I'm just gonna zoom in a little bit so you all can see. So we're just some introductions. So Keith, do you want to take it away from here? This was just to start off, a screenshot of what Keith just went over with you guys.
Sure. And if you scroll down just a little bit more, you all will see that the dollar amount for the CBE spend has consistently increased. I think there was the one year where it dipped a little bit. We did have the pandemic, but for the most part, it's increased. And now that the new ceiling is $1 billion, right? So we went from, I think, all the way back in 2016, it was in the low 600,000s. And now here we are, not even a decade later, and we've doubled that to 1.2 billion. So it is working, right? So a lot of times when I am out and about, or if I'm doing technical assistance, I hear the other side, right? Which is, hey, I haven't won anything yet, and all I can do is try and continue to help that business to win and position themselves and give them some of the tools and techniques that are out there. But it is working, right? Because somebody's winning. We've doubled in less than a decade. Scroll down. All right. So I always like to start with what are the top 10 industries? And here's why, because I want to know what industries are spending the most money and am I selling that? Right. So if you look at the biggest is $307.3 million in construction and facilities maintenance. Right. So if I'm you all, I know it says construction, but please keep in mind the facilities maintenance part of that, right? Which could be anything. It could be landscaping, it could be security, it could be roofing, painting, all the trades, et cetera, right? So don't just think, well, I'm not a construction company, I'm out. That's not the case, right? Then you've got healthcare, 204 million, IT, 43 million, financial services, 36, education services, 35, transportation, human resources, Security, 16 million. Professional services, 12. Let's stop at professional services. What is that? Well, that's where you have to do your market research, right? So to me, a professional service is architecture. But could architecture also be found over in construction and facilities maintenance? It could, right? So that's where this is not an intuitive science, right? It's not. Government procurement is not intuitive. And I'm uniquely qualified to say that because I've done it, right? So you that's where your market research comes in handy. Aziz, are we taking the questions in the chat or how are we doing questions?
Yes, please put all your questions in the chat. We'll address them during the Q&A section at the end.
Okay.
As we
I
walk
saw
through, if
S
there,
Goods. I
sorry,
saw
go
S
ahead.
Goods had their hand up, so I just want to make sure that they were recognized.
Yes, and as we're going through, if there are more simpler questions, we do have a representative, Angela Freeman from the Business Opportunities team. She's going in and answering the more simple questions.
So the total for the top 10 is 705 million, right? So here's the thing. If it's 705 million out of a possible 1.2 billion, right? Then if you're not in the top 10, you still got another $500 million worth of spending that's out there. So for example, last year, apparel was in the top 10, right? It's not in the top 10 this year, but if I'm in the apparel business, I do know the government buys apparel. So I'm not going to fret that I'm not in the top 10, right? So just be mindful for those of you that have businesses that aren't in the top 10. You still have 500 million to play with. Scroll down. All right. So then we look at, and we're going to use construction here for easy examples. So then we look at, okay, if I'm in the construction business, so I've gone from 1.2 billion, right? Remember that number. Now it's shrunk down to 307.3 million, which is not a bad space to be in. Okay, Aziza, can you make that a little bit bigger for me? Are you able to do that? All right. So for this one, construction services in general, you see the dollar amount. For architecture, which I highlighted earlier, you see your dollar amount. So now, if you're a specific trade, you see you've gone from 1.2 billion to 307 million down to, if you're an architect, 42 million. So it's getting smaller, right? But it's also, I'm glad it's getting smaller because now you're not all over the place in your time management around your procurement search, right? You can narrow it down. And then what you'll want to do, if we scroll down, then what we'll want to do is we'll look at these agencies and we go, okay, so who is spending what out of that 307 million? Which agencies? So, I would have, it's common sense that the Department of General Services, right, which their whole focus is building and maintaining our DC government buildings. So it's not rocket science that they would be spending the bulk of the money. But who knew that the library was spending in construction? So I don't know what this 42 million is. Is that we're building new libraries? I don't know. Are we fixing the ones that we have? I don't know. But if I'm on this call and I'm in the construction business, I now know I've got two agencies that I can market to. Of course, I'm going to spend the bulk of my time at Department of General Services, but I need to get into the public library and get a contact and start to market to them as well.
All
Next
right.
stop is you want me to do the same thing for healthcare?
I think it would be good if we do the top three.
Okay. So healthcare, again, we started at 1.2 billion. We've now come down to 204 million. And so then we go, okay, well, I do medical consulting. So now I'm down to this, gosh, that's small. 5.3 million. You guys see I wear glasses for a reason. So if we scroll down now, you can see, just using the color codes, you can see which agencies are spending what, right? So the boatload of that 204 million is being spent with the Department of Healthcare Finance. Again, this is not intuitive science. I would have thought that the bulk load of the spending would have been the Department of Health. That's what I would have thought. And they are spending a big chunk of change, $30 million. But the Department of Healthcare Finance, that's really where the money is. So again, depending on what you're selling, you're going to pick which one of these. So Department of Corrections, 29.3 million. Who knew? So I don't know what's going on over at the DC jail, but it looks like they're spending a lot of money on healthcare. So if you're in that industry, now you've got three solid agencies. Instead of running all over town and trying to figure it out, the Green Book's telling you, it's pointing you right to who's spending what you're selling. Last one, the third one. And that's IT. So I can see a lot of IT folks on here because I've met with you guys in the past. And so we go from 1.2 billion, which is that total agency spend, down to 43 million, 43.7 for IT. And I know a lot of you all are in the IT consulting, right? But I want to pick on the computer software for microcomputers. So basically, that's someone who's selling computers to the government, and we have a lot of those folks. They sell us Dell computers all day, every day, right? So that's at a little less than $500,000. So look how that money shrunk. So where the money is in IT consulting. So if we scroll down there, okay, now I would have thought that this would have been the office of the chief technology officer, Octo. That's what I would have thought. My common sense would have told me that. But in essence, it's the Office of Lottery and Charitable Games, an agency that we work with every day. I had no idea that they're spending 22 million in IT services. For what? I don't know. I do know that sports wagering, which is under the Business Opportunities Division at DSLBD, um, we work sports wagering every day, and we know it's growing every day. So maybe there's a contract out there, there's some sort of service that the Office of Lottery and Gaming is they need from a CBE. 22 million is a big dollar amount. Then the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, another 13 million, right? So this is not an intuitive science. Without the Green Book, I know that the IT CBEs are they're knocking on Octo's door every day. With the Green Book, they're not spending any time with that. They're going straight to what the Green Book is telling them. Now, I would also share this with you all. I think you should use another tool, which is the Office of Contract and Procurement's transparency portal, to somewhat fact check what's written here. So what I mean by that is if I'm you, if I'm the CBE, I'm going to go to the Office of Lottery and Gaming's um, on the transparency portal, and I'm going to filter down to that agency and see what the Office of Contract and Procurement is saying they're spending. It should be similar. If you see zero, then I'm reaching out to that agency and saying, hey, what's going on? Because the Green Book's telling me you're spending 22 million, but the transparency portal is telling me you're spending zero. What are we doing? Right. And usually the answer is going to be we just haven't loaded the transparency portal yet. All right. Okay, Aziza.
Great. Thank you so much, Keith. So we're gonna move on to the scenario portion of this training. So I will be giving Keith different types of industries, and we'll be showing you how to navigate the Green Book to get the information you need. So to start off, Keith, I am a new construction term. I am an SBE looking for work. So where should I put my energy to finding contracts available to me?
Very good. Now, by us doing this way, this also gives you all an inside look into what you hear us, the acronym TA, technical assistance, right? So for those of you that sign up for technical assistance, this is exactly what we do, right? We go in and we use the different tools, one of them being the Green Book, to provide technical assistance to help you in your procurement aspirations. So in Aziza's example, she's a CBE that is small, SBE, and a construction company. So I would say let's go back up to DGS because that makes common sense to me. I know that they're spending about 307 million. All right. So then I'm going to ask, scroll down some. So then I'm going to ask Aziza, well, which one of these three do you do? Right. So let's say she does construction services in general, right? Okay, so in general, I know that there's 262 million out there. Then I'm going to go back to her the CBE directory, which is another tool that you all can use. It's on the DSLBD website. Guys, if we can get that in the chat and so that they'll know what it is. So if you can go to the CBE directory, because I'm going to look at your NIGP codes and I'm going to see, do you have the necessary codes for construction services in general? All right. Now, scroll down. So then I want to know, okay, what agency? So I know DGS is where I'm going to spend the bulk of my time, right? So now I got to find out. I need a point of contact at DGS, some sort of procurement person, buyer, uh, chief administrative officer, etc. Someone who is a buyer in the agency. That's hard in this agency because it's big. It's huge, right? So I still got to do it though, right? I can't escape it. So I'm going to go to their website. Okay. So when I go to let's go to their website. All right. So
So
DG, yeah, dgs.dc.gov. So when I go to their website, I'm going to go to that contracts and procurement page. And when I land on that contracts and procurement page, there's so many places I could go. I could go to awarded contracts. I could go to the active solicitations, which is what's out on the street right now. I'm getting all of this information, as you all can see, one tool builds on another tool, right? I could go over here to this long list over on the third column. Don't click it, Aziza, because it's overwhelming. But the procurement planning and forecasting list, this thing is huge, right? It's huge. Now, I'm trying not to read the pop-ups in the chat, but I did see the word forecast. So let me just share with you all. If you go to the Office of Contractor Procurement's Transparency Portal and you hit forecast for the Department of General Services, you aren't going to find anything. And the reason why you aren't going to find anything is the Department of General Services is an independent agency. So what that means is, yes, they have to follow the CBE law and the way the money's spent. But the way that they're transparent about it, they don't have to be. So they don't have to report into the Office of Contract and Procurement to say what their activities are around procurement. That's why you want to not use the forecast tab for this agency. So what that means is you need to know who are the independent agencies. And we can show you that at a different time. That's not for this session. So then I would take Aziza to this page right here and start to do market research to find out. I'm looking for contract specialist names. I'm looking for contracts. I'm looking for them under 250, contracts under 250, contracts over 250, which prime contractors are winning, et cetera, et cetera. The sky's the limit. You could spend 8 hours just on this website right here. And it all started from the Greenbook. So give me your next example.
yes, can you do the same scenario if I am an IT consulting company, newly CBE and SBE?
Sure, sure. So if it's an IT company, first of all, let's see who is spending the money. All right, so we got the Office of Lottery and Charitable Games and the Office of the Chief Financial Officer. Okay, so I know, and we got the OCP, the Office of Contract and Procurement. There's another one. Now, I'm not dismissing the smaller ones, right? Not at all. I just know, having been a small business owner, time is money. So I'm going to spend time where there's the most money, right? That just makes common sense. So now, what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to go out and see if the Office of Lottery and Charitable Games is an independent agency or not. The reason why I want to know that is that'll take me to my next step. So first thing I'm going to do is I know I want to market to the Office of Lottery and Charitable Games. So how do I find the list of independent agencies? Let's go to that real quick. So we're going to go to OCP's website. We're going to click opportunities and we're going to click opportunities with independent agencies. So you all should bookmark these so that you don't have to do that anymore. Here's the list right here. So again, what is an independent agency? It's one that still follows and spends based on the CBE law, but the way they report in and out is independent. So you have to, in other words, I would spend more time building relationships with these agencies. All right, so I don't see the Office of Charitable of Lottery and Charitable Games here, so I'm going to go straight to their website. All right. And so now what I want to do is I need to start finding I need to engage someone because what do I want? I want a contract specialist so that I can send them my DC centric capability statement. And if you don't know what I mean by that, you haven't done TA with me. I mean, I'm going to make your capability statement be nothing but DC to include putting the CBE logo on your capability statement. Yes, you can do that. If you go to our website, there's a place where you can request the CBE logo, right? And so you're going to have NIGP codes on that capability statement, not NAICS codes, right? So that I, as the buyer, know that you're trying to do business with DC government and not the federal government. Okay, so then I'm looking now on their website. I'm looking for, well, where are the opportunities, right? So I'm just going to go to about, right? Because I'm really looking for a person. Okay, do I have I don't see an org chart. I don't see anything, any staffer, right? But that's what you would have to find. And that's why I said that's why I like doing this in real time so that you guys can see we are you. We meet you where you are. So this agency, smaller agency than DGS, I don't see a try about DC lottery. Maybe that has an org chart or slide down. Maybe it's one at the bottom. No, no. So on this
There's
one
an
here,
agency directory right here.
oh, where's that? Oh, okay, good. I think that's all the agencies, Ozzy. That's all of them. That's not Office of Lottery Game. So here's the thing. So they got a phone number on here somewhere, right? So you're gonna have to dial a number. If they have just an agency email, right? I'd send my capability statement and I would say, hey, I'm a CBE. I'm reviewing the Greenbook. I see that you all are looking for IT services in the millions of dollars. I need to meet with somebody to talk about this. There's the phone number right there. That's what I'm doing, right? And if you don't get a call back, you can always reach out to us. We'll try and advocate for you to get it. There is you could ask a director. I don't know if you'll get that, but this is part of being a business owner. It is what it is, right? So here's what I know. It's worth a few minutes because we know on the other side there's $20 million that they're trying to spend. If I'm an IT company, when I've been knocking on the door of Octo, some of you for a decade and you haven't gotten in yet, right? So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pivot. I'm going to go to the agency that's unassuming. Just think about the IT companies that are not on this call right now and that are not using the Green Book. They aren't aware. You have an advantage over them right now. All right, next one.
Perfect. Last one is I am a professional development and training organization. Where can I find an agency that is looking for that type of training
All right,
collaboration?
so first, let's look in the top 10. I believe something like training and development would be under professional services, right? So that's 12 million. So let's scroll down there. And keep in mind now, that's such a vague term, training and development, right? That could be anywhere. It really could. I mean, DSLBD brings in consultants and trainers from time to time to train our staff. All right, so here we go. 12.4 million, 6.9 of that is in general consulting services, but then I also see an event planning services. I see sports professional services. All right, so let's scroll down and see what agencies are buying what. All right, so this is a good one right here, Aziza. Thanks for picking this one. So this one right here, look at some of the agencies that you don't really think about. Who's thinking about UDC? Right? It's a quasi-governmental agency. They spend money. They spend money in the millions of dollars. Who knew that they're picking up the lion's share of this professional services? They're spending 6.9 million. Okay, so I would be on their website looking to see. I will tell you, the last time I was on their website, I saw something from 2015. Right? So it may take a phone call, may take a visit, et cetera, et cetera. I also see the school system is spending 1 million. The chief financial officer 3 million. Let's go with the school system. All right. So I picked the school system because that is an independent agency. I already know it's an independent agency, right? So I know that they do business differently, meaning this, they don't have to report to the Office of Contract and Procurement. So I'm not going to use the transparency portal. It's a waste of time. I'm going to go straight to their website. So let's go there, Aziza. And look, see, I just happen to know that they're an independent agency, but she just showed you. Now, each independent agency, they do business differently. So it's not like DGS does business different from the school system, which does business different from the library. So in the school system, there's one phone number and there's one email address that 2,000 CBEs are emailing and calling, right? So that's a tough, pack your patience on that one. But what you want to do is you want to start looking at, now they've got their solicitations up for FY'23. I don't see FY'24, right? So if I'm you all, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to go, all right, I need to find out more about, before I reach out to this general email address with my DC centric capability statement, I need to find out exactly what they are buying. And you can do that from the Greenbook. So Ziza, you want to go to that page and I'll show them how they can do that.
So I'm just gonna to find the exact page, you can actually just type in DCPS in the search bar right here, enter, and it'll take you directly to DCPS's page in the Greenbook.
Beautiful. Now look at this, you all. Now this type of intelligence is what you need when you're doing your market research. Okay, so what is the school system buying? All right, out of that $104 million that their goal, their spend goal with CBEs. They're buying apparel, communications, document management, educational services, equipment, facilities maintenance, food services, supplies, technology, and transportation. So I don't really see professional services. It's not an exact science. So I'm gonna go to, well, looks like maybe it's under, okay, you scroll down a little bit more, good. So here's some other products and services that they're buying. So I would take this very snapshot if I'm a CBE. I would take this very snapshot, I'd send it to that email address and go, hey, look, here's my capability statement. Here's what I'm capable of doing. Where do I fit in here? Can I get a procurement person? Can I get a 15-minute meeting virtually with a procurement person to lead me in the right direction here? If I'm an IT company, they're telling you the codes. You need two codes. You need 918 7100, which is a general IT consulting. A lot of people on this call that could do that work. And then there's another code, the 207. So just remember, if the code begins with a number that's not a 9, that code is a good or service. Goods and service, I'm sorry, is a good. A goods code is a little bit more paperwork and documentation to get approved. So just remember, you all, when you are trying to request codes, you are requesting. It's not you're just given a code. You have to prove that through our certification division that you are capable of doing that work. So in the case of this 207, you have to prove that you're able to procure this equipment, these accessories and supplies, and resell them to the government. Okay, so this is an even more granular page from the previous pages that I was working with. You could go right to the agency, and this helps you because now you can see, okay, well, I sell apparel, but I don't have that NIGP code. I need to request this code. You do it now. Okay. It says I saw one of the chat. I'm trying not to look at the chat, but it said prove to whom. So prove to our certification division that your company is capable of doing this, uh, providing this good or providing this service so that they will approve you to get the code. All right, Aziza.
Thank you. And as Keith mentioned throughout this portion of the training, he did mention technical assistance a lot. So Keith myself and Burchell Douglas, we routinely do technical assistance multiple times a week. Angela Freeman is going to drop in the chat the link to book technical assistance with us. So anytime that you see we have an availability, you'll be able to book online and we will meet with you via Teams. We are also at the MLK Library every fourth Wednesday of the month for in-person technical assistance. For that, you will have to book through the DSLBD website. You can access that. It's called Small Businesses. You can also just type in Google DSLBD Small Businesses. And when you get into that website, just click Book an Advisor. And we will move on to the next part. So we are also just going to review the website for three different agencies. Well, two are going to be agencies and one is a partner. So the first one is going to be DPR to review what they're looking for. So I think it's good to start first with what they're publicizing on
Department of
the
Parks and Rec.
DPR, yeah. So I already researched it, so I know the page, but they are on page 68. You can also just scroll through here to find them, but I'll also show you at the end of Keith's talk how you can further find this.
All right, so here again, right? It's all about relationships at the end of the day, right? That's how I ran my business, was on relationships. It's important. So let's say I know somebody over there, right? I don't know what they're buying or selling, but I know I can call this person and have a conversation. So I'm going to do exactly that, but I'm going to do it with this information, right? And I may, before I make that call or send that email, I may tailor my capability statement to this this intelligence that I have in front of me. So I know what they're buying. They're buying apparel, arts and entertainment, communications, event, da, 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 da. So let's say I'm an event planner, right? I don't really sell apparel, but guess what I'm going to do? I'll go find another CBE that does. Arts and entertainment, that's so vague. I don't really know what that means. So I'm going to say I do that. Communications and marketing, I'm an event planner. I don't really do that, but there's another CBE. There's 100 CBEs that do that. So I'm going to pick one I know. And look, we can partner up as a team and go after this work. It's $11 million worth of work. Or I can just roll solo and go, you know what? They're looking for transportation. They need, what is this? Boats, buses, and other transport. Okay, all right, I got a boat. Great. Okay. So I'm going to go out and get this NIGP code right here. And I'm going to reach out to a procurement person at the Department of Parks and Rec with my capability statement. And oh, by the way, I probably would put this, cut and paste this into my email and highlight transportation, right? So it's almost like you're speaking the government's language. You're using the government's very intelligence, right? So you don't want to get this. Well, we're not buying that, right? No, 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 no. You said in the green book you are buying it. Now I don't know how much money you're going to spend on it out of this 11 million, but I need to have a conversation about it because I got a boat and a bus and all these things, and I want to be able to provide this service, right? So that's how dogged you got to be. You know, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, that's the name of the game right there, right? So you got to get in where you can fit in. Scroll down to the where it says potential business growth opportunities, right? So here's some other things that are low hanging fruit where they're saying there are no growth opportunities at DPR, right? There's no other things like this is what they're buying. But some of the agencies, they'll list a few more. Like I think one of the ones earlier, they listed security as another one, right? Now, here's the other thing. I want to know, well, is DPR really spending money with CBEs? Or are they just talking? Well, here's the proof. They've gone up every year spending money with CBEs. Period. The end. So even if I don't do any of this, is this an agency that I, just because I'm a CBE, want to be in front of when I'm out at one of these networking events? Absolutely. They may not buy what I'm selling today, but they buy with CBEs at a healthy clip. So I want to be in front of them.
All right, so next we're gonna move to review the DC Public Library, and that's page 76.
By the way, DPR, Department of Parks and Rec, was not an independent agency. The libraries are an independent agency, and I think they're one of the easiest agencies to do business with. They make it very simple. They lay it out very clearly. They have one point of contact. She puts her email and phone number out publicly, right? So this is a good place to work. Now, what are they buying? They're buying construction, which we already saw that at the top of this meeting. Safety and security. Wow, I had a security company. Makes me want to go back into the business, right? Look at these millions of dollars. And then snow removal. That's which is under transportation. Okay. And they need to spend 14 million. Now, let me pause right there and remind you all, what if the agency doesn't make the 50% spend? What happens? Here's what happens. DSLBD fines that agency, fine, FINES, fines that agency, okay, for not making. Now, what agency wants to do that, right? No agency wants to explain that they did not participate in spending with a small local business. Nobody wants to do that, right? But you need to be armed with that. Like you should tell them, right? If I was still in the game and I was still running a small business, I would be telling the public library, look, you give me the contract, I'm helping you make your 50% goal so you don't get fined and have to explain, right? All right. Now, here's the other thing you want. You want to you want to look at some of the other potential growth opportunities, design and build, right? Which has a lot of money attached to it. And looks like what's that? Conveyors.
Conveyors.
Yep. So you if that's all you if there's a conveyor on here right now and you're the only CB that's a conveyor, you need to go get that work. Period. The end. Now, are the libraries doing business with CBs? Let's lay it out. Let's see. Scroll down a little bit. All right. So a banner FY'20, but things have slowed down. So for those of you that have done business with the libraries, and I'm not saying anything that's not public knowledge, they have an insurance requirement that is really high, right? So they are an independent agency, and so when they procure, they want cybersecurity, which is the premiums on that is expensive, right? So to me, I don't think their activity has gone down. I think that some CBEs, and I know some on this call who have been awarded contracts with the library and said no, thank you, because the cost of the insurance, right? So that has nothing to do with the Greenbook. That's just a healthy nugget from me. But so still though, 10 million. I don't think there's anybody on this call that wouldn't be a part of 10 million, right? So that's not a bad number. So they're still spending.
And last, we're just gonna head over to WMATA. That is not an agency, but
So WMATA, so you've got independent agencies. Of course, you've got about 80 agencies in total, right? And so about a dozen or so are independent agencies, and then the rest all you can find in the Office of Contractor Procurement's Transparency Portal. But then you have a handful of what we call regional partners. So these are folks that they do not have a written goal for CBE participation. However, it is strongly encouraged, and we do work side by side with them. That's why we put them in the Greenbook. We do doing in business events with them, et cetera, et cetera. So for this one right here, it gives you all the contact information and it shows you what their planned contract awards are, which is 4.8. Is that trillion or billion? I don't know. I didn't do well
billion,
in
I
math.
believe.
Thank you for that. So, I mean, that's a lot of money. If I can get 1% of 4.8 billion, I'm happy. I'm good. So I'm using this example because I don't want you all to forget the Wamadas of the world, which is Metro, the MWA, which is the Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority, Washington Gas, Pepco, UDC, et cetera, et cetera. All those regional partners, don't forget them. Right now, for them, you're going to go directly to them. But what the Green Book does, instead of you having to search and find and this, that, you have information here, right? You have the dollar amount to see if it's worth your time. You've contact information. I didn't know that we did these QR codes now. That's an excellent idea, et cetera, et cetera. So don't forget, there's a lot of good money out there on the table. Instead of, keep knocking on the same door over and over again, this might be an easier door. And anytime that you see um, a doing business with dot 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 workshop from DSLBD, it's usually going to be for one of these regional partners, and I would strongly suggest you attend. We also try and do matchmaking events where you can get a little bit more one-on-one time with the regional partner. Always have your capability statement ready to go.
Thank you, Keith. We're gonna try to fasten up here so we can at least have 10 minutes of Q&A. And as we were reviewing the Greenbook, we were referring to the PDF format. However, as you're trying to navigate this, if you have more time on your hand, I would recommend that you peruse this so that you can see what all the agencies, regional partners, quasi-government entities are doing. But if you are short on time, you can also just originally go to the greenbookdc.com and click on Find Opportunities. When you are doing this, you are able to individually target the agency, so you don't have to search through. So right here, it has agency name. You can select the agency that you want to target. So let's say Department of Behavioral Health, and it is going to break down right here what they are spending, their SBE spend goal. You could click more information here. And it's going to give you more resources, but just more so if you want to quickly just find out specifically about a specific agency, you can use the Find Opportunities tab. Also, there is a worksheet tab. So as you're doing your research, this is a good way to keep track of all your research. So it breaks down to NIGP codes. As Keith mentioned, the government does buy an NIGP code. So as you're researching, you want to write down the NIGP codes that they're targeting and make sure that if you can provide those services, you are requesting them through the portal with the SLBD. And it has more information keeping track of the name of the opportunities, solicitation number, closing date. So this is a really good tool to keep track of your research. And we're gonna return to the PowerPoint.
Let me just say something about that worksheet. I do hundreds of hours of technical assistance with each and every one of you. I rarely see folks using the worksheet. The more you can document your efforts, the better. You're not going to be able to remember all of this. You're just not. So why not use the tool? It's a piece of paper, right? Just use it. Jot down the NIGP codes that you're going to need to go and request. You're not going to remember all of them. You've got a company to run, right? So you got to take care of the customer first. This is all secondary stuff. But without doing this the right way, you won't get to a customer. Okay? Go ahead, Aziz.
Perfect. So as we're coming to the end of the meeting, you might be thinking, hey, I want more assistance with this. So we actually have a couple of entities that can support you in this. First is the Business Opportunities Division, which Keith and I are representatives of. Our email is business.opportunities@dc.gov. So what we did today at a large, we can do specifically for you, targeting the agencies that you want to target, and even more in depth looking at the transparency portal, etc. So this will be one-on-one technical assistance through the link that was dropped in the chat earlier. So I would suggest that you reach out to us, and Keith is going to cover the other two entities that also offer services with contracting assistance.
So also, if you are looking for more uh, regular technical assistance, our DC Apex Accelerators, formerly known as PTAC, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, these acronyms killing me. So if you want more than what we give, we usually will do 2 or 3 sessions to get you up to speed on some of the tools and techniques that we've already given. But if you want more regular activity, now I will tell you that the Apex Accelerators, their primary focus is the federal government, right? It's the federal government, specifically DOD. However, they can help you with navigating through some of the CBE spending that's going on. So there's their email and phone number. Well, that's our main number, and just ask for the Apex Accelerators. There is a process to become a client of Apex Accelerators, so they can explain that to you. But for those of you that just want to stay right in that lane of CBE and you just need a little nudge along the way, we're here to help. People have been with me since 2019, and I keep saying I don't do that anymore, but they find me, right, and I'm glad to help. The other thing is, now let's say that you are having trouble engaging an agency, right? So if I got $1 for every time I heard they didn't call me back, they didn't email me back, I wouldn't be working, right? So those things happen. So in cases like that, don't just call the Office of Contractor Procurement Ombudsman, but call him or email him. He's a great guy, Pete Teague, with data, meaning here are my 3 emails. I've reached out to this contract specialist 3 times. I've gotten no response. Do that. Or I got a response and I'm not sure if it's fair, impartial, et cetera, and I need somebody to talk to. I need an advocate. This office does that, right? So we work with Pete once a month on a different training. It is the what's the name of it, Aziza? It skipped me.
The OCP General Vendor Workshop.
General Vendor Workshop. Exactly. So for those of you that haven't sat through that, you should find out when the next one is and sit through it. But Apex, if you're looking for more, technical assistance time, or you want to pivot over to the federal government, and then the Office of the Ombudsman, if you're having trouble engaging. Questions
Thank
and
you,
answers
Keith.
now?
Yes, so we are moving on to the questions and answer section. Before we do that, I would like to just plug training that we have upcoming next week, February 6th. If you are a CBE, you should have received an email. We will be sending an email tomorrow with the appointments that you will need to book to meet. OTR and DLCP will be there. So if you have questions about your business licensing, or your clean hands, they will be on site. These will
Aziza,
be
one second.
primarily.
1 second, Aziza. 1 second, please. So OTR, Office of Tax and Revenue, and the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection. Just so you guys know, I know because we're inside and we get in acronyms all day long, but I just want to make sure y'all know. Go ahead.
Thank you, Keith. But yes, so you will be receiving this email tomorrow. So if you have any concerns, especially with any contracting opportunities coming up and you want to make sure your paperwork documentation is correct, you make sure that you sign up for this in-person event. It will be at the Marshall Heights Community Development Organization. You will receive the email with the location and everything tomorrow. So please be on the lookout for that. And we also have listed here the contact information here. If you want to reach us at DSLBD, our phone number, any CBE questions, and then if you have any questions to us, the Business Opportunities team, the email is listed here. Without any further ado, we are going to dive into the questions. So the first question we have from Devin here is, he said, Keith, you mentioned 50% of the amount must be spent on small businesses. How does this relate to the 35% requirement for SBEs?
Good. Great question. So the 50% spend is an agency spend. Okay. So like DSLBD, let's say our expendable budget is $1 million. We would need to spend $500,000 with a CBE that's small. The 35%, that part of the CBE law is for any DC government contract over 250,000. So if the contract's over 250,000, let's say the contract's $1 million. If the contract's $1 million, a non-CBE can bid on that contract and win it as long as they bring a CBE that's SBE into their proposal at 35%. Next one.
Next, we have a question from Alfonso Duckett. He said, would general services fall under the category of professional services category?
First of all, hey Alfonso, good man right there. So my knee jerk answer is no, because DGS primarily is building and maintaining buildings. However, one could argue that something like architecture is a professional service, and perhaps the general contractor of the contract of the project may need a small amount of architectural services. So my knee jerk reaction is no, right? DGS wants Department of General Services wants people to build buildings, clean buildings, keep buildings safe, etc. Professional services is exactly that, right? That's your training, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So architect is just kind of a unique. And I think there are only like a dozen CBEs that do it. Next question.
Next question from Earl is, what category is the DC General schedule?
So I think Earl's talking about the DC supply schedule. And if that's what you're talking about, the DC supply schedule has a number of categories. So when you apply to be on the supply schedule, you'll pick a category that fits your company. Different training, but you could just reach out to us and we can get into the weeds with you on that, Earl, if I think I have your question correct.
Next is from Victor Holt. Is there a requirement for when the transparency portal get loaded? It appears it only loaded once the contract opportunities are released. Is there a way to know pre-RFP what's coming down for the year? I believe we kind of referred to that with the forecast.
Sure. So hey, Victor, good man right there. So Victor, on that one, yes, you're right. That is a frustration, right? That sometimes the portal, it's not in real time. It's just not, right? But what I try and tell the people I work with is just use the forecast tab. So if you use the forecast tab, that should be saying to us the work that's coming in the future, right? So if I find something on the forecast tab that's coming out, that now opens up a conversation for a contract specialist. Well, I found this on the transparency portal. When is it coming out? Right? What quarter is that? Can I be invited to bid? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that is a frustration that it's not in real time. So I would use that forecast tab as much as I could. Now the solicitations tab in the portal is for what's out on the street right now. But to your point, Victor, yeah, I wish you guys could get in front of the solicitations better. Work every day to get there.
Thank you. Next is we have a question. Do the Board of Elections use sports professional services? I think he was referring to when we were reviewing the Greenbook. That may have been listed under Board of Elections.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I was intrigued, but I'm just as intrigued as the person that asked the question. I'm curious as to why that was there. I would reach out to the agency directly and find out, what are we doing right here? So I'd reach out to them. I know some have to drop off because it's 1:00, but I want to make sure everybody's question is paid attention to. So we'll keep going. Go ahead.
Perfect. Next is I am a biotech company who builds sustainable, health-centric, tech-enabled housing for emergencies and the disadvantaged. How do I look for this? And there is no code for it.
Ooh, that's tough. So I probably would start with, what makes common sense? What agencies should I be engaging? Should I be engaging the Department of Energy and the Environment? Should I be engaging Octo? Like I don't know enough about the company to know. I don't have a capability statement, et cetera. So my first step would probably be I'm going to set up a technical assistance session with Keith or anybody on his team so we can really dig into the weeds on what your company does, what their capabilities are, what your NIGP codes are, and then we'll go back to some of the tools like the Greenbook to point you in the right direction. And what I try and do is narrow it down to somewhere between 3 and a half a dozen agencies that you can market to. Great question.
All right. Next is, what is the difference in financial consulting and financial services and financial consulting and professional services?
So I would look at it this way. Great question, but I would look at it this way. Am I selling a service or a good? So financial consulting is a service. Financial services is a service. I would leave it right there, and then I would engage the agency that's buying it and get their definition of it, not Keith's, but get the buyer's definition of what the two are. Right. But for procurement purposes, you want to narrow it down to I'm either selling a good or a service. Now, for example, you could be selling a good that is a financial services software. That's a good, right? So you want to just make sure that you have the right codes, that you're collecting the right codes, and you would know that because you are the best person that can answer whether or not you're selling a good or service. And then I would engage the agency that you're trying to do business with to get their definition of it.
Thank you. Next is somebody said, I am a healthcare staffing in DC. How can I get a contract?
That's a great question. Do I know that person that asked that question? Because I've had like 3 people ask me that, and they all do the same thing. So first of all, I would get some technical assistance from our team, right? I would do that first. Not that your efforts aren't good ones, but we're inside and we do this every day, right? So it's a little more intuitive to us. So I would do that first. And then I would look at, well, what agencies make common sense, right? So to me, Department of Health makes common sense. How much money are they spending? I'd use the Greenbook to find all those things out. But I think to help you or help us help you, reach out to us, engage us, get that TA time so we kind of better understand what you do. We can review your capability statement, and then together we can find the right agency for you. But my knee-jerk reaction is Department of Health is a no-brainer.
Next question is someone asked, is DCSAA an independent agency? DCSAA is a District of Columbia State Athletic Association. All the independent agencies are listed under the OCP Independent Agencies tab. Do you want to add anything, Keith?
Uh, Other than I would check to see if they're a monitored agency. If they are, then they'll be in the Greenbook. They could fall under the school system, right, and not be a monitored agency. So I would do that research. But to Aziza's point, they are not listed as an independent agency on the Office of Contractor Procurement's website. So the answer would be no.
Thank you, Keith. Next question from Devin. He said, the current DC law allows nonprofits who are given a DC contract an exemption from the DC subcontracting requirement. This means they do not have to spend the 35% or 50% of their award with DC CVEs. This puts DC small businesses at a disadvantage. And I'm lobbying the city council to change this law. Are there any efforts by DSLBD to get this law changed?
I'd never do no comments, Devin, but it's not in my lane. So I won't do a no comment. What I will tell you is we do have a legislative team. If you reach out to me directly, I will get you in contact with them, and the better answer is from them. I hope I nailed that for you, Devin, because I don't like doing no comments. Not a politician. Next question.
Thank you, Keith. Nate said, when an agency, example, Octo, is going through OCP and has an RFP on the OCP website, could you explain the relationship between OCP and Octo? Like, what is the role of the contracting specialist, administrator, and officer?
Great question.
Okay, and they have a follow-up. So
Great question right there. So what OCP, Office of Contract and Procurement, is doing is they're working on behalf of that agency, Octo, Office of the Chief Technology Officer. So instead of Octo having someone to do the procurement for Octo, Octo has asked the Office of Contract and Procurement, could one of your specialists, and oh, by the way, over at OCP, they have someone that's all they do is IT contracts, right? So if you want who that is, you can reach out to our team and we can give you that person's email. It's no secret. And so what I just don't know the email. So what you'll want to do is that's what OCP is doing. They're doing their administration. They're doing the administration part of the procurement for the contract. And there was a follow up to that one.
Yes. So he also said, should we be building a relationship with OCP people or the folks from Okta?
As many people as you can in the government. Everybody. So I'm from here. I say everybody. So you want to get as many, right? You want to get as many contacts as you can. Keith Howard is a contact, right? Devin asked me earlier a question that now he's going to get our legislative person, right? You should have a list, and your most important list is your contract specialist. If you're trying to win work, that's who you should be talking to. So many times you all reach out to the contracting officer. If I was a contracting officer, why would I talk to you? Right? I have to make a decision. So if I talk to CBE number 1 and I didn't talk to CBE number 2, CBE number 2 is going to be feeling a certain way. So that's why we have specialists. The specialists are going to be the ones to administer the communication back and forth, et cetera, et cetera. You all should have a list of those. Next question.
All right. Next one from Karen Carr. Must the CBE request a code? I think she's referring to NIGP code before presenting the code to a contract specialist.
Hey Karen, good to hear from you. I think you should always have the code first, right? It's easier for a buyer to engage someone that our certification team has says can do the work versus someone who hasn't. Conversely, I'm not saying that don't if you're out networking and this and that and you've had this engagement, I would go ahead and tell them, hey, look, you know what, I can do that work. I'm working on the code. I'm gonna get my request into the certification team. I'll have that code in a couple weeks. That's it.
Let me get a job. All right, next one we have is, does the Department of Housing and Communication Development buy real property design services to rehab vacant real property?
I think it's community development. Um, So housing and community development, do they buy that? I don't know. Right. So I would use the Greenbook to find out what they are buying, but I would go even a step further and try and engage the agency, send them your capability statement, right? Ask for a meeting, right, and see what they're buying. And you could use the transparency portal, go under forecast tab and see what that agency is buying if you don't get someone from the agency to engage back.
Next, we have from Narissa. She said, you mentioned matchmaking events. So far, most of the ones have been construction focused that I have been to or heard about. Was curious about if there are ever any CBE social events or networking with other CBEs, or is there a list or some sort of Facebook community group like through the Circle platform, CBE networking events other than the matchmaking? This would be great for seeing if there's a synergy in business operations that we could connect on, as to your point, for us to link up, short of just searching the portal. What are the better options is what I'm wondering.
Sure. So first of all, the part about the matchmakings and being construction. So construction, spends the most money. So yeah, there are going to be some matchmaking there around construction. But I got to tell you, in FY'23, the DSLBD managed matchmakings, there weren't many construction. In March last year, we did just sports wagering matchmaking, and that totaled, I think that came out to over 2 million in contract wins for CBEs. Right in the summertime, we did a matchmaking with DC Sustainable Energy and Utility, DCSEU. That had nothing to do with construction. We did one with DCHR that had nothing to do with construction. So I think the best thing you could do on that is just continue to stay engaged with DSLBD. Check your emails. I know y'all get too many emails from us, but check your emails. and find out what's a good fit for you. Now, as far as the other thing about engaging and being a little more interactive, we are working to do that. You know, obviously, District Connect is a big event for us that'll come out in October. We are looking to try and have some sort of post event after that. We're also looking in March to make some of our sports wagering matchmakings in the hour that matchmaking would happen, et cetera, et cetera. So we are thinking of some creative ways and ideas to have. I would love to see CBEs with more camaraderie. I would love to see that. So we are working through that, but you know, it's government and it takes us a minute, but we're working on it.
And we have a follow-up question from the question you answered about the NIGP codes. They said, but the CBE application requires us to enter the codes before we get approval, as I recall.
Approval for what? A contract or for the certification?
Codes.
Oh
The
yeah.
codes.
Oh yeah. So if you are a consultant, right, and you want the consultant services code, yeah, as part of your application, you'll want to request the consultant code. Absolutely. What I'm saying is I wouldn't go into the portal every day, one code at a time. I'd get a bundle of codes, 10, 20, 30 codes, and request all of them at one time. And I'd probably do that 2, 3 times a year.
Thank you, Keith. And just to elaborate also on that question, when you originally apply, you can request, but if your capabilities grow, you can also request more codes throughout your tenure as a CBE. Also, just put into the chat as we finish the question by Angela Freeman is our current grant opportunity, all things green. So these are 4 different grant opportunities that you guys can look into. The RFP and the NOFA are up if you want to dive deep into that. Otherwise, the RFA, my apologies. Thank you all for coming today, and we will be closing out this training here. Keith, any last words?
No, that just on that grant, $500,000 in grant money out there. So leave that right there. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, everyone. We will be leaving the meeting. We look forward to seeing you at our next training event.